Hi everyone, welcome to this latest episode of VFX Notes. I'm Ian Fales from Befores and Afters, and as always, I'm joined by Hugo Guerra from Hugo's Desk. Hi there, Hugo. How are you?
Hey Ian, how you doing? I can see
I'm
you
good.
you have a box behind you. What is that?
Oh yeah, well, I should say that up front. Sorry about the mess, but we're moving, heading to a different city in Australia later in the week, and the place is full of boxes, but we're getting close. Not too bad.
Oh, it's so lovely to move, isn't it? Packing everything, no stress.
Yeah.
It's so relaxing to move, isn't it? It's so nice.
I love it. Love it so much. No, never again. It's fine. Hey, Hugo, this is our 10th episode.
I know.
That's insane, right?
I know. I should have bought some confetti. I know. I'm really happy. We got to 2 digits. Look at that. 10. That's great.
Yeah. Now's the time to stop. We've done a Netflix run. No.
Oh, season 1 is now over. Yes.
Hugo, this week we're not going to be discussing a big film. That's going to come later in some upcoming episodes. Today we're going to do a bit of a roundup of where things are up to, both from our points of view, but also the industry.
Yeah.
We always usually do start with what we've both been up to. Do you want to give a quick overview of what you've been doing the past couple of weeks?
Yeah, of course. I am actually working in 2 short films at the moment, and I'll just say it out there, like on this Sunday, because it's Halloween. If anyone is interested on buying my nuke composting course, I am doing a 25% discount because it's Halloween, only on Halloween day. So I'm doing those things. Yeah. What about you, man?
Well, apart from moving, it's been a busy time here in Australia because things are opening up a bit more, which means, for me personally, starting to book movies. I have actually booked a ticket to see Shang-Chi next week.
Cool, man.
Because I haven't seen that film. And then, of course, Eternals is coming out June, eventually, and some other things. So for me, just getting to the movies is a busy thing. That also means these blockbusters coming up to Christmas are starting to get released. So I've been doing interviews for that. Just released a couple of fun pieces on Befores and Afters about Venom 2 and No Time to Die, Foundation, and lots of other cool stuff coming on the online site and in the magazine as well. Issue 4 of the magazine is going to be out before the end of the year. So it's... Yeah... Well, there's the 4 magazines that are out, including one of the special editions.
I know, there's like the secret one. If anyone is watching the video, they can see the secret. Well, where's the secret one? Here's the secret one. Yeah. No one knows what it is, but I guess people can guess.
I'm not even going to say what it is. Thanks, Hugo. Yeah, all right, so lots going on. I sort of said that there'd be some big episodes of VFX Notes coming, but Hugo, do you want to sort of give a quick rundown of what those are?
Yeah, of course. So yeah, we have a lot of things planned on the pipe, as people usually say. So obviously we just did the episode about Dune. Thank you so much for all the love and care people sent our way. It's been really well received, that episode, and the David Fincher episode as well. We're obviously going to eventually do one about the new Dune, of course. Obviously, I'm going to watch it tomorrow on IMAX, and then Ian is probably going to see it in December. So yeah, we'll definitely do one about Dune. We also have some new things going up. We're going to have some guests coming in. So why don't you tell the audience who's our new guest?
Well, Hugo, our first guest is going to be Craig Barron he was one of the founders of Matt World Digital. He's now works at Magnopus. But Craig watched our David Fincher episode, including where we talked about Zodiac. And of course, Matt World worked on Zodiac. He liked the episode, thank goodness.
I love this.
And he actually reached out to us, and we really wanted to talk to him about some of the, projection techniques and other sort of matte painting techniques that he pioneered.
Yeah.
At ILM, but also at Matt World Digital. So I can't wait
great.
For that. That's going to be a fun guest.
And it's so cool that he actually reached out and watched the episode. I'm so happy about that. Yeah, I guess. So I'm really looking forward for that. We also have another guest coming in. We have Matt from the Foundry as well, and he's going to talk to us about some of the new plugins and new tools coming up to Nuke 13.1 or 13.2 or something like that. So he's going to come in on the show as well. And then we have a bunch of episodes. We already spoke about doing a special episode about Aronofsky's Dune, about the Dune that was never made, which is a very fascinating film, which we will talk about H.R. Giger and a lot of other artists. And we also have we are actually planning to do something about Alien, and also planning to do something about Ghost in the Shell as well. There's a bunch of episodes coming up. So keep tuned and keep subscribed.
That's right. Yeah. And we will, as Hugo said, be covering those big films. Dune is one, Denis Villeneuve's film, but also Eternals. I mean, that's out next week. Insane, all these big movies starting to come.
I know.
I've just been watching Foundation, Hugo. I guess I just wanted to talk to you briefly about, like, what have you been watching, what's been on your watch list, and what's big at the moment.
Yeah, so the cinema is open here in the UK, so I've been very fortunate to see a lot of things. So I saw 3 films, actually, in the last week or so. I watched Halloween Kills, Venom 2, and The French Dispatch as well. So I'll give a really quick rundown from all 3 of them. So I'll start with Venom 2. Venom 2 was, as the first one, magnificent in visual effects. It was a beautiful film, especially the end. I'm not going to spoil anything for anyone, but the end sequence, the end fights are just really impressive between Venom and Carnage in the church scenes. And yeah, the whole thing, the integration of Venom into Tom Hardy, the whole destruction of his apartment, the whole thing just looks seamless and flawless. But one thing I must say is, like, from my opinion, this is just my personal opinion, I thought the film was very, very unbalanced. I thought the film had some brilliant moments and some really horrific moments. I think the film has some really bad parts with some bad acting and some bad editing, but then some really glorious parts. I just feel like it was really uneven. I don't know if it was rushed or if there was something wrong going on somewhere. It just really felt like, maybe it was in purpose, it felt like 2 movies tried to be stitched together, tried to be an action movie but also a comedy, but didn't really manage to do any of them. So I don't know. I'm conflicted about this film. I felt like I'm seeing also a lot of polarizing reviews on it as well. So I think I'm not the only one saying this,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I haven't seen it. Yeah. I once again, and this is, just the way it works sometimes, I've done a big article at Befores and Afters on the film with some great behind the scenes, by the way.
Yeah, this is DNEG London, right? And DNEG Montreal and Image as well, isn't it? Image Engine.
Image Engine worked on it, Framestore, on the animated sequence.
Yeah.
You can read in the article. I'm curious about the film because I found the first one to be a little bit bizarre as well, Hugo.
Yeah.
But I loved it.
It was better.
But it has this
I liked
edge.
the first one. I thought it was better than this one.
Yeah. But look, lots of people went to see it. It's often, in the last couple of weeks, it's been talked about along with No Time to Die.
Yeah.
And I'm being serious here, as saving cinema for, from COVID.
It's doing really well. It was packed, the room where I watched. I just felt that it was, I don't know, no disrespect to anyone that has worked on it, but I felt that it was a bit uneven and not very well put together. But, not in terms of visual effects. I'm talking about, like, the editing and the acting and the story. The plot was a bit confusing. I don't know. I think it needed a bit more minutes on the oven or something. I don't know. Like, I felt like it wasn't fully cooked or something. But it had it. Yeah. And anyone that goes and see the film, stick around for the credits because there's something at the end that is really cool. So please do that.
Yeah.
As always.
What about? Yeah. What about Halloween Kills?
Yeah. So
now, just to prep that, I haven't seen any of the Halloween films.
I can't believe this. I can't believe this. How is that even possible?
Hugo, let me explain one reason why. It's Halloween in Australia, at least from my point of view, is not a thing.
Oh, I see.
anyone with kids in Australia will be screaming at me now because apparently it has become a thing.
Oh yeah, that's
where they walk around the neighborhood, get candy and do the thing and you know, dress up their yard and all this sort of thing. But me growing up, it just Halloween isn't a thing. Therefore, I probably never thought to see the movies.
Yeah.
You know, and
you haven't missed much.
So,
you have not missed much, I can tell you. There are 13 of them. I'm a big fan since I'm a kid, but the only 13? There's 13 films, and the only one you need to really see is the first one. The first one is magnificent. It's like independent movie from first film from John Carpenter. It only costed $200,000, which is unbelievable. It grossed $80 million at the time, not even counting all the Blu-rays and all the outs that it's been out since. First one is magnificent as a horror flick. It's a turning point. These ones, they did one 2 years ago called Just Halloween. It was a reboot, a new reboot by a new director. He's called David Gordon Green. It's not directed by John Carpenter, although he's producing it. And the music is also still being done by John Carpenter and Cody Carpenter, which is his son. So they work together. I've watched Carpenter twice live here in London. His band is great. This film, the one I went to see, Halloween Kills, is a direct sequel from the reboot from 2019. You have to go and see the 2019 one. Otherwise, you will not understand this one because it's an exact sequel. And there will be a third one. So this is a trilogy of films. And also this film also stopped hanging in the air for the next one. So it is really, it's one film really, to be honest.
Yeah.
I thought it was great. I love Halloween. It's a really low budget movie. Don't expect much, you know. It's a nice slasher movie. It's a nice Halloween movie. If you talk about the visual effects were quite cool. Nothing fancy, but mostly blood, splatter, head decapitations, those kind of things. Really gory mix between really good makeup and some good compositing and some visual effects and particles. This was done by Crafty Apes and Cutting Edge. These were the two main vendors on the show. But I need to talk, I think one thing we need to talk about is this makeup thing. Oh my God.
You showed me this. Now Hugo's about to talk about this. This is incredible. I was floored by this, so get ready.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
There's a character from the first film called Dr. Loomis. Dr. Loomis. He was a really famous actor at the time. He's dead now, unfortunately. So they didn't have the budget to do a de-aging CG double for him. So what they did was they did a full makeup prosthetic of an actor pretending it's him. And it's so well made. They've posted on Instagram. We're going to post some images on the video. This makeup is amazing, isn't it? It's just like, it looks just like him.
Yeah. And I think that what's incredible is that maybe when you showed me Hugo, I went, oh, so that's the makeup. And then they've done something else with CG, like in Photoshop.
Yeah.
You know, and said, well, here's what we did and here's the Photoshop result. But no, that's the makeup.
Well,
that's what was used.
So far, that's what everyone is saying. I don't believe everything anymore, but, you know, so far, no one has said there was any visual effects. Maybe we'll find out that there was some touch-up. But this is amazing, yeah. So they basically did a full prosthetic of Donald Pleasance, he's a really famous British actor. He's been dead for a while now. You guys should, I'll put the images on the show. And I guess we started then talking a bit about this, didn't we? Like, I guess for these low-budget movies, well, relative low budget, this is a $20 million movie, which is very low budget for these kind of films. I guess this is a great choice, isn't it? It's a great, especially because he's in shadow, and especially because he doesn't show up much on the film. It's just a cameo, you know. He's like on the film for like a minute. But he's on a really important scene that had to be with him because it's a flashback. So they do like a quick flashback to the 70s, to the original film. And so they have all the characters from that original film. Obviously, the main villain, he has a mask, so you don't have to worry about him. But this main character, this police officer, this doctor had to be done in CG. So I think that this is a great choice, isn't it? That's what we were talking about, that.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen it, but I think possibly Hugo, there are other films, bigger films with bigger budgets, where they can do a CG version of an actor or a de-age or a enhanced makeup. And because they can do it, they tend to show that character in full light, in long shots, in full shots, just to be like obvious about it. The longer your camera lingers on someone, the more you get a chance to, you know, critique the visual effects shot or makeup effect.
And that's why it's smart here, because they don't linger on him. I've watched the original Halloween multiple times. I know this character really well, and I didn't in this. I'll swear, I watched it and I thought it was brilliant, and I was waiting on the credits to see where is Lola, where are the companies that usually do these things, and then it's not there, and I thought, oh, wait a minute, someone else did this CG then. Then I found out there wasn't any CG. So it was really surprising for me. I thought it was a digital double. Yes, I did. I really thought so. But yeah, it's really cool.
It's possible that you get away with things a little bit more if it's in shadow or in certain pieces of lighting conditions. Also, there are sometimes discussions about this in terms of what people remember from the first film or other films. And so you create what people remember. But if you did put it side by side, you'd go, oh, that's really different.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of clever if you create what people remember.
You're absolutely right, because he has a really legendary trench coat now, because he always has that trench coat. He always has that clothing. So he was dressed completely like the original film. So it helps. It helps a lot, So go and check that out. And then the third film, just to be really quick, I went to see The French Dispatch. The French Dispatch is the most Wes Anderson movie of all the Wes Anderson movies. It is literally, I guess they need to make a new word, Anderson-vised or something. I don't know. It is like so thick of things happening. The film itself is structured as like a 5-part short film, really. There's 5 stories going on the film. You should go and watch it. I thought the film loses some gas halfway through. I think it doesn't sustain its creativity. It doesn't sustain the really cool things that happen in the first hour of the film. The film is almost 2 hours long. The first hour is brilliant. Like the beginning is brilliant. The first story with the French news, the French newspaper, and then also the reporter with the bicycle, all those things, and also the artist on the prison. That short is amazing, but then the rest goes a bit flat. Must be the biggest acting ensemble I've ever seen. There's at least 20 amazing big Hollywood stars on this film. Some of them only are on the film for 10 seconds.
Everyone wants to be in a Wes Anderson film, I'll tell you.
But I guess
I want to be in one.
I guess, no one cares what I think. I'm sure people love it. I thought it was good, but it went flat a bit halfway through. But who cares what I think? But I think what we need to talk about is the amazing work on miniatures on this, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it turns out, of course, that Wes Anderson, by his stop motion films and other live action films, is a big fan of tactile things, props, miniatures that are like not actually realistic looking, but kind of are because they're real and almost stylized. He's had a long relationship with his head of miniature effects, which is Simon, I think it's Weiss, and who put together a miniature effects unit in Berlin for the film. And then just today, one of his model makers and miniature effects artists, Burton Pierce, published a really cool behind-the-scenes video of the miniatures,
which you're watching right now on the video.
And Burton, a couple of years ago, made this really cool documentary called Sense of Scale. That was available as a DVD. And he's also, during COVID, actually been publishing a lot of the segments on YouTube.
Yeah. I just bought that DVD on eBay. The other day.
Weren't you looking for it for years or something?
I was,
Hugo?
yeah,
Or-
and it was expensive. I paid like £30 for it, which is a lot of money for a DVD. But I had to. It has a lot of has some extras as well, some stuff that was not on the film. But yeah, this the miniature work is flawless. Obviously, we don't know yet. We haven't seen breakdowns, but obviously there's a lot of compositing as well happening because they are comping the actors into the miniatures. They are comping in people into the miniatures. We haven't seen those breakdowns yet, but it's astonishing work there because it is flawless. And that airplane just looks beautiful. There's a lot of that on the film. There's a lot of slicing. You know, those old graphics that used to slice in half, and then you see the interior of everything. So they do that a lot on the film. They have a sliced airplane, they have a sliced train, they have a sliced car as well. They have sliced buildings, and then you just see the interiors of all of it, like it's like a little house of little dolls. It's fantastic. Yeah,
I really like how he does that. Say he did that for Grand Budapest Hotel, where some of the hotel itself and then the ski environments in that film, they're miniatures. But they don't look real. But because they're crafted as real buildings, you know, with mistakes and fingerprints and whatever else on them, they feel real, like I was just saying. So I just love that approach that, yes, the kind of the work is flawless, but it's sort of like if it was done in CG, possibly it wouldn't have that handcrafted look that his films tend to have already.
Probably not.
So and I love that style.
Yeah, I do as well. And I guess, this film is supposed to be in, the film is very French by its look, but the cool thing about it is that it doesn't show any particular part in France. It's just that it shows the spirit of France. I guess it shows the imagination version of France with all these buildings and all these small little streets and all these people walking around with bicycles and baguettes and like the striped shirts, and it's all about our imagination of what it looks like. The same way that he shows Texas, but it's not. He just shows Texas as a cornfield. It's like Texas is not a cornfield, but all these things are just like our imagination of where those places are. And I think he does a brilliant work there. The film is really worth going and watch because it is a masterpiece visually. Every frame is almost like a painting. It looks beautiful. I think it's the most straightened and most corrected work of camera mastery that I've seen on his films. Like the camera, the film is in 4:3 as well. Most of it, some of it is in 16:9, but most of it is in 4:3. It jumps around from black and white to color to 16:9 to 4:3. Right. Even jumps to animation. There's like an entire sequence completely done in 2D animation as well. So can't wait to see more breakdowns. And I'm sure we'll talk more about it on the show as they show up.
Yeah. I want to pick up on that really quickly, Hugo. Yeah. We mentioned the miniatures. There's probably a lot of compositing and visual effects in it too. Yeah. The French Dispatch is one of those films, in my early prediction, that can sometimes make its way into the long list of the academies for VFX consideration. And that's because, in my view, it often has invisible effects. And, they don't all want Marvel films only or big visual effects films in that long list. But what we were going to talk about, Hugo, was a couple of early predictions, because I'm already seeing articles around about VFX predictions. Do you have any quick initial thoughts on this?
It's funny that you're saying that because it's true. Like, if you look back at the latest wins, like if you look at First Man and if you look at Ex Machina and if you look at even going back all the way to Inception, and it usually is the film that is the most invisible version of all of the films on the list. Not giving any, they're all amazing usually, and it's always a very tough fight, and it's always really difficult to choose. But you're absolutely right. This film could go into that list for sure. I feel like, obviously there's too many always because there's only 5 nominations usually. But I'm pretty sure, looking at what we've seen so far, I'm pretty sure Dune is going to be there. I'm pretty sure Dune is going to end up showing up. It also has quite a lot of practical stuff as well, but obviously it's most of it visual effects. And it's funny how I've seen like Andrew Hoxton, one of the CG, one of the lead CG artists on the film. He was on Twitter the other day. People were like saying, "Oh my God, Dune is so good because it's practical." And it's like it's set on another planet. It's not practical. Come on, people do get the wrong idea, I think, sometimes. And
well, it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because there was a couple of trade publication reviews which praised the use of practical effects and the non-use of CG in the film. Yet the DNEG artists who worked on it know exactly how much visual effects and CG is.
There must be 2,000 scenes on visual effects in that film.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what I mean by double-edged sword, because in a weird way, it's a praise of not picking up that it's CG.
Are we getting so much of that?
It's the same old. Sorry.
No, it's It's the same old school of the same old story we had on Fast and Furious 9, wasn't it? It's the same shit.
Yes, the same old argument and commentary. Yeah. But listen, you're right. June is clearly a front runner, I think, for the visual effects Oscar. We haven't seen.
I haven't seen it yet, but I mean, just looking at the trailer, I'm sure it's going to be there. You know, I'm sure it is, and I guess from my point of view, I think, if Matrix looks good, if it's going to become what we see on the trailers, it might show up as well. Taking into consideration that it won the Oscar back then on the original. It actually, back then in 99, even won editing, which was, wow, like it actually won editing. And if I'm not mistaken, it won cinematography as well. I can't remember if it did, but I think editing it won for sure.
I was going to say, Hugo, it's interesting. There is a push, I think, in recent visual effects Oscar wins for, let's make sure it's not all CG. Like, as in the voting block, you know, you could start saying they love practical effects and, you know, when they go out and shoot and don't use blue screens and stuff. But equally, if a film comes along where a brand new technique is used and showcased, that's what I think is also a possible here. Now, we don't know if Matrix 4 has some kind of fancy, amazing new thing that rivals bullet time, right?
Yeah.
And I think if that is the case, then it's going to be up there as well.
Yeah, if it does.
Honestly, the breadth and amount of films with huge visual effects in them this year. I mean, just listing a few: Shang-Chi, No Time to Die, Suicide Squad, Jungle Cruise, Venom 2, Quiet Place 2, Spider-Man, the new one. I mean, it hurts my brain to think about how the Academy will work out how to just get 5, you know.
Well, I no disrespect to anyone, but I feel like the Academy, at least on its nominations, I think it's sometimes a bit predictable in the fact that sometimes you can see that they do nominate things, in my view, that are a bit more old school. That's why I think Jungle Cruise would be there for sure, I think, because not that it's old school, it's just that it's a typical big visual effect. It has all the things. It has all the tick boxes. You know, it has environments. It has creatures. It's like a big, massive production. So I'm definitely thinking that it's going to be there for sure. I'm not so sure about Suicide Squad. It's a lot of competition this year. Suicide Squad looks amazing, but it's very competitive this year. Maybe Venom would drop in. It is really flawless. I don't know. It's tough, man. 5, wow. But you know, I'm gonna give my prediction. If you want to do, like, maybe it will be the same as mine, but my personal prediction for 5 would be Dune, Matrix 4. I think Jungle Cruise will be there, and I think Shang-Chi will be there as well. And then I guess I only have one left. I'll go for Venom. That's it. I'll go for Venom. Yeah.
Okay.
That'll be mine.
I think mine's similar, but every year, Hugo, not every year, often there's like a wild card, a number 5 that you wouldn't think would be there.
Comes out of the blue,
that was Ex Machina a few years ago.
Which one?
Which one?
Yeah.
Because I think people liked that it didn't feel like a visual effects film.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what that wildcard one is yet. It might not have been released yet, but I think that's what I was getting at a little bit with French Dispatch. Probably won't be one of them, but it's that kind of film.
It might, but you're absolutely right. We are just about to start the awards season. nothing has really come out yet for those big awards, like for the film itself. Almost like last few years ago, Ford versus Ferrari was in the run a bit. It didn't end up being nominated, but it looked so good, and it was a bit on the run, but then it kind of lost steam. You're right. I'm sure something will pop up between now and January, where like a big drama film, or maybe like a more regular film, not the visual effects fantasy film, will show up with something outstanding, and it probably will take the glory. Yeah, sometimes that happens. Yeah, especially this, like on the Oscars, the last one is always the one that people remember. So unfortunately, a lot of times the films that come out early in the year sometimes get a bit forgotten, and because all the big hitters launch their films at the end of the year, so they are closer to the Oscars. So that happens a lot usually, So anything that comes out in the beginning of the year, sometimes it gets a bit forgotten. True. It's already gone of the cinema, so it doesn't have that momentum going,
COVID might be the reason this time, but you're right. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Especially if it's a Christmas release. All right, we're going to wrap up, Hugo, with a sort of look at the state of play of things in visual effects at the moment. And one thing, again, because of COVID, that we've of course noticed is, or not just noticed, but we've wondered, where is working from home up to? Yeah. I'm fascinated by this, because I think when the pandemic hit in March 2020, it was actually the first conversations that a lot of visual effects people were having once they started working from home and it went fine. They were like, oh, is this like gonna keep happening? Wow, we're not like leaking anything. It's all kind of working. But I'm not sure necessarily, Hugo, that the conversations have continued. I guess there's a lot of hurdles to overcome in terms of, tax incentives and just technical stuff. But what are you hearing, and what's your thoughts on this at the
moment? As everyone knows, I've been working from home for 7 years. So for me, this discussion is been like I'm over it. I've been over it for a long time, as my team has been working remotely for a long time. And I just feel like I know what you mean, because I see a lot of people returning to the office, especially here in London. In London, a lot of people coming back to the office. A lot of people really eager and happy to come to the office. But there's also half of them that are not. So a lot of surveys came out lately saying that half of the workplace, not even just in visual effects, but on other workplaces, half of the people don't want to come back to the office, and half the people really want to come back to the office. And I think now we're getting this split. We're getting the people that are really, really big social creatures that want to go to the pub. They want to go into the water cooler. They want to have conversation. They want to have that buzz of the office. And the people that never really liked it and thought that an email would suffice, and so that we were just wasting time with meetings and being at the office in the first place. So I think we're getting a split here, and a lot of people are making decisions now, career decisions, of if they can stay home for longer or not. I have friends and colleagues that are now working half-half. They're working half of the time on the office, half of the time at home. I have other colleagues that are saying they'll never go back to the office. I have other colleagues that will say they'll never stay home again. I think it has to do, at least on my point of view, from London point of view, has also to do with the fact that houses are really small, so people don't have the luxury of having an office. They don't have a luxury of having an extra room. So a lot of people were working on their kitchens. So I don't think that people, at least in the UK, were prepared for this, and so that's why you're getting a lot of this. A lot of people kind of fighting it back and actually wanting to go back, which I understand. I understand.
Oh, totally. And and I think you might be right. It's a bit of a split. People love the camaraderie at work, and they probably feel more efficient at work, as much as people also love working from home, especially if you have family and children and other responsibilities. But as long as you have the infrastructure at home, I think that's a big deal. The other thing is companies possibly are starting to pivot. Maybe they already were. I noticed this week there was an announcement of a new company made up of a lot of ex-Dean Eggs crew, and it's called Below Effects, I think, which appears to be operating between London and Vancouver, but possibly further than that. And I think that's going to be a trend, isn't it, Hugo? That
Yeah.
why do we have to set up in London? Why do we have to set up in just Montreal?
Yeah.
Why can't we be cross-border?
Yeah.
Below seems to be doing that.
Yeah, yeah. Now we are now starting to see more and more of this happening, and I'm really happy to see this. I personally feel that the future is boutique VFX houses all over the place, so that when you have a film, you have maybe 20 companies working on it instead of one large 2,000 people company, you know. So, and it looks to me, by looking at their website, looking at their ethos, looking at their text on their website, looks to me like it is very much catered for the future proofing. So it should have a very robust remote pipeline as well. So, but yeah, this is happening a lot now. Like senior staff joining forces to open like a small boutique house to just, you know, I guess, you know, not no disrespect, you know, they're not leaving the big houses because they hate them. They're just leaving because they want a fresh start and they want to build something by themselves, you know, because it can become, as someone that has been on big studios for a while, I understand that point of view. It becomes a bit stale, you know. After like 5 years at the mill, it became a bit stale for me because the advancement doesn't go that far. You don't get so excited. You don't have that kind of edge and drive to do things because it's all the same thing happening every day. So sometimes you need a fresh start. So I'm looking forward to seeing what this new studio makes. Like I hope a lot of them come up and come out. But this could become a small problem for some big studios. I see quite a lot of talent exodus from some companies, which is not good for the big ones. But
but I think that happens in big law firms or accountants as well, right? So, and it's interesting in visual effects. It's kind of seems to me like sometimes a bit of a circle because often, I mean, DNEG was a small studio started from ex-MPC and also game people, and they got big because they got good and they needed to get bigger to fulfill big Warner Brothers contracts or whatever it is, you know. So, and that's kind of the story of a lot of these big companies. They just need to keep feeding the beast, I suppose. And when people leave, or even if they just want to start up a startup visual effects company, well, the truth is they take on more work and they tend to get bigger as well. So, I mean, but again, as I say, it's probably just like a lot of companies. In the creative space, I think one thing to say about that quickly, Hugo, is I think people prefer working in smaller companies if what they want to be is closer to the work. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
If they want to still be on the box, if they still want to have these close relationships with filmmakers and whatnot.
Yeah, that's why I left big companies, so that I could do more creative and work with more parts of the production and not be so much like a cog just on the machine. Yeah, absolutely can understand that point of view as well.
Yeah. Which is not to say that the big companies don't do beautiful work, and in fact, their units when they're working on a film are kind of sometimes self-contained. That's not always the case.
Yeah, of course. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying to anyone to just leave and open a new company. There are artists that love to work as a unit. There are artists that love to work on a more creative, experimental point of view. You just have to find your passion and your love and where you can fit in better. It's great that we now have these options, and it's great that these companies are popping up because it gives you a lot of choices, and you can then make choices not just for the type of work that they do, but you can also make choices by the culture they have, if they're remote or if they're not, if they're ecologically friendly, if they're not. Like, you have all these kind of things to measure and to choose which company you go and work for. So it's an exciting time for that, and it's a busy time as well. It's a very busy time.
Yeah. So we did kind of conflate two things there. I'm totally going to admit that in terms of work from home and new studios. But I think that is what's going on at the moment. You know, lots of change in the visual effects industry. Yeah. Hugo, another quick thing about that change is the impact of virtual production. Yeah. I just wanted to observe as a final thing this week that I was at this, I was watching a virtual conference in Australia to do with virtual production. And suddenly, all these companies operating LED wall volumes and stages in Australia were presenting. And I was like, oh my gosh, I knew it was big because I've written stories about LED walls and things. But I just had to mention that in the podcast, that it just seems to be taking over Australia. And then we know that there's other companies in Toronto, Europe, America, London doing the same thing.
Yeah, this is... I don't know. I understand why all these studios are popping up, because there was a huge need of virtual production, especially on COVID, and there's still that need, and obviously it's going to continue. But I'm a bit worried. Weren't you talking a bit with me about this off cast as well? Because it seems to me that are there really enough productions to sustain all these studios? Like it seems to me that there's too many of them popping up everywhere. Because now we're moving back to the sets again, and COVID restrictions are getting lessened. People are really eager to go on set. Every time I speak with someone, people are like, "Oh, I can't wait to go to set. I just want to go out. Just want to go to a desert. I just want to go to the forest. I just want to go somewhere." So I don't know. Like now that the restrictions are over, aren't people gonna want to go more to the locations instead of LED panel? I don't know. Like it's a bit conflicting.
Possibly.
Yeah.
But for example, one of these LED stages is in Melbourne, and they helped make a show about bushfires or wildfires if you're in America. Now, it's incredible what they did with the panels and a mock-up of a fire engine. You know, they're not going to go and shoot that in a real fire. I mean, they'd probably love to. But this is safer, and the result was incredible. So, yes, about the concern that suddenly there's so many of these. Is there too many? I would say the only thing is, although I'm concerned about that, although I don't really know because I'm not working in that space, is that we do know The Mandalorian is using it. The new Boba Fett thing is using it.
Yeah.
Some big films are using it. But I'm also seeing them so much more in commercials and music videos.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe what we'll find is that there really is a space for the stagecraft ILM, huge ones, which, you know, have a real army. And
well, at the moment, the cost is the prohibited part. Like the cost is the issue, because these stages are not cheap. And so if there are too many of them out there, and it's a more democratic part of having them that many, I'm sure the price will come down, and then they will open up the space for commercials and music videos and other productions for sure.
Yeah.
If everything becomes cheaper, because at this stage, for smaller productions, it's just still cheaper to just put a green screen up. It is. Like, it's still much more cheaper to just send Roto to another country, get an army of VFX people, and do a green screen. And although the results might not be as flawless as it will be if it's an LED wall, but it will be cheaper, and unfortunately, money talks. So, yeah, I want to be positive about it. I hope they all stay open, and I hope... but I've seen the same. Like you just saw in Australia, I see the same in Germany, I see the same in London, in UK, I see the same in Europe. They're popping up everywhere, and there's a lot of them, a lot of them opening up.
And one further aspect of it is, I'm talking about ones that are relatively permanent. There are actually a raft of these as literally pop-ups.
Yeah.
That get built, then taken down, which, is more in line with the filmmaking set, I guess, in a way.
Yeah.
So that's possibly an interesting avenue, because that, in some ways, is not as... It sounds like it's more expensive.
Yeah, but you can put the cost to the production, because then you just rent the stuff and then put it back. Yeah, there's definitely a business there, because you can get a company that just rents equipment to do that kind of thing. It's a bit like, Rebellion did that. They had a pop-up LED volume. They did a few things, and then they popped it down. So it was they did that as well. So as long as you have some space,
Yeah. Anyway, it's something to mention, because it always keeps changing, just like the VFX industry keeps changing. Good to talk about it. Hugo, that's episode 10.
I know.
We're here.
I know.
We're at the end.
I know. And
Amazing.
11 is the next one. I know.
Well, it's great to chat to you as always. I love to let people know where they can find you and me on social media. So where can people go?
So, as always, people can find me on Hugo's Desk. I have a YouTube channel. I have Discord. I also have Twitter, and I have my own Twitter, my personal Twitter, Hugo C. Guerra. Don't forget to also, if you like the show, if you want to continue to see the show flourish, don't forget to support the show. You can support the show in a lot of ways. You can either leave us an amazing review, a 5-star review on Apple Podcast. You can subscribe to the channel, to Hugo's Desk. Obviously, if you want to go further, you can support either my Patreon on Hugo's Desk or Before and After's Patreon as well. Ian has a Patreon as well. So if you want to support and help the show. And if you have questions, we would love to start having more audience as well on the show. So if you have questions, or if you want to have some, what people usually say, reader mail, you know, like a mailbag from the audience, we would love to start doing that. So send us a few notes, send us a few questions. We can read them at the end of the show. We would love to do that. So yeah, let's keep going with the VFX Notes podcast.
Awesome. And everyone can find me at beforesandafters.com, and on Twitter I'm Ian Files. Hugo, pleasure to talk to you again. Catch you very soon.
Thanks, man. I'll see you later. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.